Rodney Dangerfield once stepped up to a microphone, adjusted that famous red tie, and delivered a line that probably got a few husbands a swift elbow to the ribs. "My wife and I were happy for 20 years. Then we met." We laugh because it stings just a little bit. If you've been married longer than a refrigerator warranty, you know the truth. Sharing a life with someone is a beautiful, deeply testing experience. Tonight, we are looking back at the classic comedians of the 20th century because they didn't just tell jokes about marriage. They left us a survival guide. We're going to find out why Phyllis Diller had the absolute best advice for a midnight argument, and what George Burns understood about love that everyone else seemed to miss. You know, young folks today have thousands of books and podcasts telling them how to optimize their relationships. They talk about love languages and active listening. Back in the day, our love language was usually expressed by not turning the television volume all the way up when the other person was trying to nap. We didn't have relationship coaches. We had the comedy club and the late-night talk shows. The comedians of that era understood that the daily friction of two humans sharing a kitchen, a bathroom, and a checkbook is inherently ridiculous. Groucho Marx looked at the whole institution and decided it was less of a romance and more of a legal proceeding. "I was married by a judge. I should have asked for a jury." A jury of your peers. Just imagine that. 12 strangers sitting in your living room, deliberating on whether or not you actually did put the lid back on the peanut butter jar. The genius of those classic comics was their willingness to say the quiet part out loud. They recognized that a wedding ring doesn't magically turn two flawed people into saints. It just traps them in a car together on a long road trip without a map. And while the men were up there complaining about their wives, the women were firing back with even sharper aim. Zsa Zsa Gabor, a woman who certainly had enough marriages to gather a solid sample size, summarized the male condition perfectly. "A man is incomplete until he is married. After that, he is finished." She wasn't entirely wrong, was she? There is a certain kind of bachelor independence that simply has to be dismantled if a home is going to function. You are finished eating over the sink. You are finished buying furniture based entirely on whether it reclines. But out of all the sharp tongues of that era, Phyllis Diller understood the practical mechanics of a fight better than anyone. Modern therapists will tell you, never go to bed angry. Resolve your conflicts. Phyllis looked at that advice, realized it was impossible, and offered a much more realistic alternative. Never go to bed mad. Stay up and fight. Stay up and fight. Because nothing solves a complex emotional disagreement quite like arguing at 2 in the morning when your blood sugar is low and your feet are cold. Of course, she was kidding, but she was touching on a great truth. The effort it takes to argue is, in its own weird way, proof that you still care. Apathy is quiet. A marriage is loud. The day you stop bickering over who left the hall light on is the day you stop paying attention to each other. Any young man made a career out of this kind of misdirection. He loved to paint himself as a scoundrel. leading the audience right to the edge of scandal. I've been in love with the same woman for 41 years. If my wife finds out, she'll kill me. The joke is a masterpiece of timing. But here is the historical reality behind the punchlines. Any young man was married to his wife, Sadie, for 62 years. He adored her. When she was sick, he practically built a hospital room in their home just to keep her close. And that brings us to the great George Burns. For decades, he and Gracie Allen were the ultimate comedic partnership. On stage and on screen, she was the scatterbrained force of nature, and he was the man just trying to survive the storm. But when the camera stopped rolling, George knew exactly what he had. I was always a straight man. Even in our marriage, Gracie got all the laughs. He never tried to change her. He never competed with her. He just gave her the room to be brilliant. And he stood right beside her, enjoying the show. That is the hidden truth behind all the cynical jokes and the stage complaints. The comedians who made the sharpest jabs about marriage were usually the ones who held on the tightest. They knew that a sense of humor isn't just a nice thing to have in a marriage. It is the shock absorber that gets you over the potholes of life. I want to hear from those of you who have put in the years, who had it right today. Phyllis Diller, who thought a good fight kept things interesting, or George Burns, who figured out that the secret was just letting your partner take the spotlight. Let me know down in the comments. I read them all. Until next time, keep your memory short and your patience long.